The observation deck of the Terran station shuddered. Not violently, but enough to make Lieutenant Marcus Chen's coffee ripple in its cup. He'd been stationed at the Galactic Junction for 6 months, watching ships from 100 worlds dock and depart, but he'd never felt the entire platform shift like that. Through the reinforced viewport, a vessel materialized from slip space. Enormous and obsidian black, its hull adorned with silver patterns that seemed to move like living creatures. "Christ," breathed Sergeant Rodriguez beside him. "That's a Sovereign-class command ship." Marcus set down his lunch. The sandwich looked pathetic next to the display of power outside. Around them, station personnel had stopped their routines. Silence spread through the observation deck like frost. The command ship didn't request docking permission. It simply anchored itself to the primary dock, its mass making the station groan. Marcus watched as diplomatic channels lit up on the nearest terminal, messages flooding in faster than anyone could read them. "All security personnel to Dock 7. Code Violet." "Repeat, Code Violet." Marcus moved before his brain caught up. Code Violet meant foreign dignitary, highest protocol, zero tolerance for error. His sandwich forgotten, he joined the flow of uniformed bodies heading toward the docking bay. Rodriguez kept pace beside him, her hand resting instinctively near her sidearm. They formed up outside Dock 7. Commander Hayworth stood at the front, his jaw tight enough to crack teeth. "Listen carefully," he said, voice low and hard. "The Caliph Empress herself is aboard that ship. Not an ambassador, not a representative. The Empress. She controls 47 systems and enough firepower to turn this station into debris. We maintain absolute professionalism. We do not speak unless spoken to. We do not move unless ordered. We are statues with heartbeats. Understood?" "Yes, sir," came the unified response. The dock doors opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Marcus's breath caught. 12 guards emerged first, each one 7 feet tall, armored in what looked like crystallized starlight. Their weapons hummed with contained energy. They moved in perfect synchronization, creating a corridor that led from the ship to the station interior. Then she appeared. The Caliph Empress was not what Marcus expected. She stood perhaps 5.5 feet tall, slender, with skin that shifted between deep purple and midnight blue depending on the light. Her eyes held galaxies, literally, as if stars rotated within them. She wore robes that seemed woven from cosmic dust, flowing around her like captured nebulae. 3 silver bands circled her head, each one pulsing with soft light. But what struck Marcus most was her face. She looked exhausted, ancient and young simultaneously, carrying a weight that bent her shoulders forward despite her regal posture. The Empress walked slowly down the corridor of guards. Her entourage followed. Advisors, more guards, beings Marcus couldn't identify. The station's diplomatic corps waited at attention, their prepared speeches dying in their throats as she passed without acknowledgement. She stopped right in front of Marcus. Those galaxy eyes focused on him, and he felt the weight of civilizations pressing against his chest. His training screamed at him to stay still, stay silent, be invisible, but her expression shifted just slightly. Was that curiosity? Confusion? The Empress swayed. Marcus moved on instinct. His hand shot out, catching her elbow as her knees buckled. The galaxy eyes widened. Around him, 12 weapons charged with a sound like reality tearing. He felt Rodriguez tense beside him, felt Commander Hayworth's shock ripple through the formation. The Empress steadied herself, her hand gripping Marcus's arm with surprising strength. She looked down at where their hands met, his darker skin against her shifting purple, and something passed across her face. Surprise? Recognition? She spoke, her voice layered with harmonics that made Marcus's bones vibrate. "When did you last eat, human?" The question shattered protocol like dropped glass. Marcus's mind reeled. The Empress of the Caliph, ruler of 47 star systems, was asking him about meals? This morning, Your Majesty." Those eyes searched his face. "No," I asked, "when I last ate." She released his arm, stepping back, her guard still radiating lethal tension. 3 days. "I have been traveling for 3 days through diplomatic meetings, treaty signings, and disputes that threatened to become wars. I have not eaten in 3 days because there was always one more emergency, one more crisis, one more delegation that required immediate attention." She looked around the dock, at the assembled security forces, at the nervous diplomatic corps. "And now I arrive here and the smell reaches me. Food. Real food. Not the nutrient paste my advisors insist sustains me." Her gaze returned to Marcus. I watched you through the viewport. You were eating something? What was it? Marcus's throat felt lined with sandpaper. A sandwich, Your Majesty. Turkey and Swiss on rye bread. You were enjoying it? Yes, Your Majesty. The Empress tilted her head. I want to understand this sandwich. Where is it now? I left it in the observation deck when the alert came through. She stood perfectly still for 3 heartbeats. Then she smiled, and the expression transformed her exhausted face into something radiant. Show me. Commander Hayworth found his voice. Your Majesty, you have prepared state dinners, formal receptions, ceremonies that will take hours. The Empress's voice carried absolute authority despite its weariness. I have attended 217 such events this year. I have worn diplomatic masks, spoken empty pleasantries, and watched power plays disguised as conversations until I forgot what simple kindness felt like. She turned back to Marcus. You caught me when I fell. You asked nothing in return. You looked at me with concern, not calculation. And you were eating a sandwich that made you happy. I want to see this sandwich. Marcus glanced at Commander Hayworth, who looked like his brain had short-circuited. The commander gave the smallest nod, probably because he couldn't think of a single diplomatic protocol for this situation. Yes, Your Majesty. This way. Marcus led the Empress of the Caliph toward the observation deck. Her guard formation flowed around them like a protective tide. Behind them, chaos erupted as diplomatic staff scrambled to adjust plans, to make sense of what was happening, to figure out how to report that the most powerful being in this sector wanted to see a sandwich. They reached the observation deck. Marcus's coffee sat cold in its cup. His sandwich rested on its wrapper, one bite taken out of it, looking impossibly mundane next to the cosmic entity standing beside him. The Empress approached the table slowly. She looked at the sandwich like it was an alien artifact. Then she looked at Marcus. May I? He nodded, unable to speak. She picked up the sandwich with both hands, carefully, reverently, brought it to her face and inhaled deeply. Her eyes closed. When they opened again, they were bright with something that looked dangerously close to tears. It smells like simplicity, she whispered, like a moment without weight. She looked at Marcus. May I taste it? It's yours, Your Majesty. She took a small bite, chewed slowly. The entire observation deck held its breath, guards and humans alike watching the Empress of the Caliph eat a turkey sandwich from a Terran station cafeteria. She swallowed. Tears tracked down her cheeks, leaving trails of bioluminescence. I had forgotten, she said quietly. I had forgotten what this felt like. Food that is just food. A moment that is just a moment. No agendas. No power struggles, just taste, texture, satisfaction. She took another bite, then carefully set the sandwich down. You are going to eat this for your meal. I can get another one, Your Majesty. No. The word carried finality. You shared this with me. That matters more than you understand. She turned to face him fully. What is your name, human? Lieutenant Marcus Chen, Your Majesty. Terran Security Forces. Marcus Chen. She spoke his name like a prayer. Do you know what happens in my world when someone offers their meal to another? No, Your Majesty. It is the oldest gesture of trust, of kinship. We do not share food lightly. To accept food from another is to accept them into your family. Her expression shifted, becoming serious. I am tired, Marcus Chen. I am so very tired. And you, without knowing, without wanting anything, offered me a moment of peace in the storm of my existence. The Caliph do not forget such things. One of her advisors stepped forward, a tall being with 4 arms and eyes that glowed amber. Your Majesty, we must proceed with the scheduled. Cancel it. The Empress didn't look away from Marcus. All of it. The state dinners, the formal receptions, the treaty ceremonies. Everything. The advisor's amber eyes widened. Your Majesty, that's impossible. We have obligations. The obligations will wait. The Empress's voice carried an edge like sharpened stars. For once, they will wait. I am declaring a personal day. A concept I learned exists in human culture but have never experienced. I will spend it here, in this observation deck, with Lieutenant Marcus Chen, learning about sandwiches and simplicity. She smiled at Marcus. If he is willing. Marcus felt the weight of history pressing down on his shoulders. Somewhere in the station, diplomatic staff were probably having collective heart attacks. Behind the Empress, her guards stood frozen between protocol and disbelief. Commander Hayworth looked like he might actually faint. But the Empress looked at him with those galaxy eyes, and he saw not power or authority, but a person drowning in responsibility, reaching for a lifeline disguised as a turkey sandwich. "I'm willing, Your Majesty," Marcus heard himself say. Her smile brightened the entire deck. "Then sit with me, Marcus Chen. Sit with me and tell me about your world, your life, your simple pleasures. Tell me what it is to be human, without crowns or burdens, without the weight of stars. Tell me what I have forgotten in the pursuit of empire." Marcus sat. The Empress of the Kala sat across from him, her cosmic robes settling around her like captured stardust, and picked up half of his sandwich. Outside the viewport, her command ship floated like a small moon. Inside the observation deck, two beings from different worlds shared a meal, and the galaxy held its breath. "Tell me," the Empress said softly, "about this thing you call Turkey." And Marcus, security lieutenant, ordinary human, began to speak. The diplomatic incident had only just begun. The observation deck remained frozen in shock for approximately 30 seconds after the Empress sat down. Then chaos erupted in slow motion. Commander Hayworth's comm exploded with incoming messages. The Empress's advisors clustered near the entrance, speaking in rapid harmonics that made the air vibrate. Station personnel pressed against the windows from the corridor outside, their faces ranging from terror to fascination. Marcus tried to ignore all of it. The most powerful being in 47 star systems sat across from him, holding half of his sandwich like it was made of spun glass, waiting for him to explain Turkey. "It's a bird," Marcus began, then stopped. "Sorry, Your Majesty. Do you know what birds are? I have studied Earth fauna." The Empress took another small bite, her expression thoughtful. "Avian species, descended from dinosaurs. This creature was domesticated for consumption?" At Marcus's nod, she continued, "We have similar practices on Calith Prime, though our food animals are aquatic. The texture is different, denser." She chewed slowly. "This is softer. Comforting. The cheese helps." Marcus pointed to the sandwich. "Swiss. It's got holes in it naturally from the fermentation process." The galaxy eyes fixed on him with sudden intensity. "Controlled bacterial growth creates structural variation that affects both flavor and texture?" Yes, Your Majesty." She leaned forward. "We abandoned such processes 300 years ago, too unpredictable. Our food is synthesized to exact specifications, every molecule placed with precision." Another bite. A longer pause. "We lost something in that precision."
"Variation?"
"The small imperfections that make each experience unique." One of her advisors, the four-armed one, cleared his throat. "Your Majesty, the Terran Diplomatic Corps is requesting, tell them I am engaged in cultural exchange of the highest importance," the Empress said without looking away from Marcus. "Lieutenant Chen is educating me on artisanal food preparation and the philosophical implications of fermentation. They will have to wait." The advisor's expression suggested this was not the first time he'd had to translate the Empress's whims into diplomatic language, but it might be the strangest. He retreated, speaking rapidly into a communication device. The Empress finished her half of the sandwich. She sat back, her robe settling around her, and for a moment she looked genuinely peaceful. "Tell me about your normal day, Marcus Chen. Before I arrived and disrupted everything." Marcus glanced at Commander Hayworth, who had gone very still, listening. The commander gave the smallest nod. Whatever was happening here, it had moved beyond normal protocol into something else entirely. "I wake up at 0600, Marcus began. "Physical training for an hour. Breakfast in the mess hall. Usually eggs and coffee. Then I report for duty at 0800. I'm part of the security rotation for Dock 7, which means I check credentials, monitor traffic, watch for anything unusual. Is it boring?" The blunt question surprised him. "Sometimes, Your Majesty. But that's good. Boring means safe. Boring means everyone goes home at the end of the shift. You find peace in the absence of crisis." The Empress tilted her head. "I have forgotten what that feels like. Every day brings a new emergency. A border dispute. A trade war. A diplomatic incident that could cascade into actual war. Peace for me has become the brief moment between catastrophes." She looked out the viewport at her command ship. "I have 17,000 people aboard that vessel. Their lives depend on my decisions. Beyond them, billions across my empire look to me for guidance, protection, prosperity. The weight is constant. It never lifts." Marcus thought about his next words carefully. "Your Majesty, may I speak freely?" "I wish you would. I am so tired of careful words. You caught yourself when you stumbled earlier. You said, 'When did you last eat?' But you meant yourself. You're running on empty, aren't you?" The galaxy eyes met his, and he saw the truth in them. I am running on duty, Marcus Chen. It is all that remains when everything else has been stripped away. I have not slept properly in 6 weeks. I have attended crisis meetings, mediated disputes, made decisions that affected billions, and I have done it all while maintaining the appearance of absolute control, because the moment I show weakness, the moment I falter, the entire structure begins to crack. Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. You caught me when I fell. Do you know how rare that is? To fall and have someone catch you without asking for something in return? I was just doing what anyone would do. No. The word carried weight. Most beings would have calculated, would have seen an opportunity, would have wondered what favor they could gain from the moment of the Empress's weakness. But you simply caught me. You looked concerned. Nothing more. She stood suddenly, gracefully, her robes flowing around her. Walk with me, Marcus Chen. Show me your station. Not the diplomatic areas. Not the formal spaces. Show me where you live, where ordinary people exist. I want to see what normal looks like. Commander Hayworth stepped forward. Your Majesty, security protocols will be maintained. The Empress gestured, and her guards flowed into formation around her. I am not asking to go unprotected. I am asking to go unperformed. No ceremonies, no speeches, just observation. The commander looked at Marcus, his expression clearly communicating that if this went wrong, Marcus would be responsible for the greatest diplomatic disaster in human history. Marcus swallowed hard and nodded. This way, Your Majesty. They left the observation deck, trailing security forces and increasingly frantic advisors. Marcus led them through the station's main corridor, past shops selling food from a dozen worlds, past entertainment venues where beings of every description gathered, past the small gardens that station engineers had installed to improve air quality and morale. The Empress stopped at one of the gardens. It was nothing special, just a small green space with earth plants and a bench where tired workers could sit during breaks. An older man occupied the bench now, eating lunch from a container, his maintenance uniform marked with grease stains. May I? The Empress asked Marcus. Your Majesty? May I sit with this person? Marcus's mind raced. You can do whatever you want, Your Majesty. You're the Empress. That is exactly the problem. But she moved toward the bench anyway, her guards flowing around her, the maintenance worker looking up in confusion that rapidly transformed into shock. The Empress sat beside him. What are you eating? The maintenance worker's mouth opened and closed several times. He was human, maybe 60 years old, with gray hair and calloused hands. His eyes darted to Marcus, silently screaming for help. It's okay, Marcus said softly. She just wants to talk. It's just rice and vegetables, ma'am.
Your Majesty?
Sorry, I don't know the proper. May I try some? The Empress leaned forward slightly, her galaxy eyes fixed on the simple meal. Please. The maintenance worker, probably on pure autopilot, handed over his fork. The Empress took a small portion, tasted it, and her expression shifted through several emotions. Ginger, soy sauce, sesame oil. Simple ingredients combined to create complexity. She returned the fork. Thank you for sharing your meal with me. You're welcome? The maintenance worker looked like he might be having a stroke. The Empress stood. What is your name? George Martinez, Your Majesty. Deck maintenance crew. George Martinez. I will remember this moment. She paused. Do you enjoy your work? Most days, ma'am. Your Majesty. It's honest work. Keeps the station running, keeps people safe. And that satisfaction is enough? George considered the question seriously. It's more than enough, Your Majesty. Not everyone gets to do work that matters. I fix things. I keep systems working. When I go to sleep at night, I know I did something useful. That's not nothing. The Empress stood very still. Then she turned to one of her advisors. Make a note. George Martinez. When we leave this station, I want his work record sent to my personal files. I want to remember that there are beings in this universe who find genuine satisfaction in honest work, who sleep well at night knowing they kept systems running, kept people safe. She looked back at George. Thank you, George Martinez. You have taught me something valuable today. They moved on, leaving George sitting on his bench looking like he'd been struck by lightning. Marcus led the Empress deeper into the station, showing her the places where real life happened. The small cafe where off-duty workers gathered to play cards and share stories. The recreation center where children from dozens of species learned and played together. The memorial wall where the names of those lost in the station's brief history were etched in stone. The Empress stopped at the memorial wall, reading names silently. "Every empire has these," she said quietly. "Walls of sacrifice. Names of those who gave everything so that others could continue. I have seen thousands of such walls. I have added names to them myself." She reached out, her fingers hovering just above the etched stone. "We memorialize the fallen, but we forget that every name represents a person who once ate simple meals, who laughed with friends, who found satisfaction in honest work. We reduce them to symbols." "We remember them so they're not forgotten," Marcus said. "Do you?" The Empress turned to face him. "Or do you remember an idea of them, a sanitized version that makes their sacrifice noble rather than tragic?" She looked back at the wall. "I have ordered actions that added names to walls across my empire. I did so because it was necessary, because the alternative was worse, because sometimes there are no good choices, only terrible ones and catastrophic ones. But I remember them, every single one, their faces, their names, their hopes. I carry them with me, and the weight grows heavier each year." One of her guards stepped forward. "Your Majesty, perhaps we should—" "No." The Empress's voice was soft but absolute. "I need this. I need to remember that leadership means bearing the weight of every decision, of every loss. The moment I stop feeling this weight is the moment I become a tyrant rather than a ruler." She turned back to Marcus. "Show me more. Show me the places where joy exists. I've seen enough of memorial walls." Marcus thought for a moment, then smiled. "This way, Your Majesty." He led her to one of his favorite places on the station, a small space near the outer hull where the viewport was particularly large and clear. A few people sat there now, watching ships come and go, watching the stars rotate slowly as the station maintained its position. Among them was a young girl, maybe 8 years old, her face pressed against the viewport, her eyes wide with wonder. The Empress approached slowly. "What do you see, child?" The girl turned, saw the Empress, and surprisingly showed no fear. Children were like that sometimes, Marcus thought. They hadn't learned to be afraid of power yet. "Everything," the girl said simply. "There's a ship from the Andromeda sector. See the blue lights? My dad says those are plasma drives. And that one's from the core worlds. The one with all the gold. And yours is the biggest one I've ever seen. It's beautiful." "You think my ship is beautiful? It looks like the night sky came alive? Like someone caught the darkness between stars and made it into a ship." The girl's expression was pure wonder. "When I grow up, I want to captain a ship like that. I want to see everything. Go everywhere. My dad says I dream too big, but I don't think dreams can be too big. They're dreams. They're supposed to be big." The Empress knelt down, bringing herself to the girl's eye level. "What is your name, child?" "Maya Rodriguez. My mom's a security officer here. She's probably really stressed out right now because you're here and there's all this protocol and stuff." Maya paused. "You're way prettier in person than in the hollows." One of the advisors made a choking sound. The Empress laughed, a genuine sound of delight that Marcus hadn't heard from her before. "Thank you, Maya Rodriguez. That is the most honest compliment I have received in years." She looked out the viewport at her ship. "Dreams should be big. They should be vast enough to hold all your hopes and wild enough to make your heart race. Never let anyone tell you otherwise." "Will you?" Maya asked. "Will I what?" "Tell me my dreams are too big? You're the Empress. You could tell me to stop dreaming and I'd have to listen." The Empress was quiet for a long moment. "No, Maya Rodriguez. I will never tell you to stop dreaming. In fact, I am going to make sure you have every opportunity to chase those dreams as far as they lead you." She stood, turning to her advisors. "Make a note. Full scholarship to the Khalith Imperial Academy for Maya Rodriguez when she comes of age. Navigation and command track. And find out what her family needs. Education, resources, opportunities, provide it all." Maya's eyes went wide. Her father, who had been sitting quietly nearby, stood up so fast he nearly fell over. "Your Majesty, that's too much. We couldn't possibly." "You can. You will. Your daughter reminded me why empires exist. Not to accumulate power, but to create possibilities. Not to control the future, but to ensure that young beings with vast dreams have the chance to pursue them." She looked back at Maya. "Keep dreaming, child. Keep looking at the stars and wanting more. The universe needs dreamers." Maya threw her arms around the Empress in an impulsive hug. The guards tensed, weapons halfway raised, but the Empress raised a hand, stopping them. She hugged the child back, her eyes closing, her expression peaceful. "Thank you. the Empress whispered. "Thank you for reminding me." They left Maya and her father in stunned silence. The group moved through the station, the Empress stopping frequently to observe, to ask questions, to connect with ordinary beings living ordinary lives. She spent 10 minutes watching a human chef prepare noodles in a small restaurant. She listened to a merchant from the Outer Rim explain the economics of trading exotic spices. She stood in silence as a street musician played a haunting melody on an instrument Marcus didn't recognize. Hours passed. The station's diplomatic corps had apparently given up trying to maintain any semblance of normal protocol. They simply followed at a distance, documenting everything, probably writing reports that would be studied for decades. Eventually they returned to the observation deck. The Empress's command ship still hung outside, patient and massive. Inside, Marcus's cold coffee still sat where he'd left it, a reminder that this had all started with a simple sandwich. The Empress stood at the viewport, looking out at her ship, at the stars beyond. "I came here today to sign a treaty that would have taken 6 hours of careful negotiation. Important work. Necessary work. Work that might have prevented a war." She turned to Marcus. "Instead, I ate a sandwich with a security officer. I talked to a maintenance worker about honest labor. I was hugged by a child who dreams of captaining starships." She smiled. "And I learned more about leadership, about what matters, about why I bear this burden, than I have in the last 10 years of formal negotiations. Your Majesty," one of her advisors said carefully, "we really must address the treaty situation. The delegations will wait another day." The Empress cut him off. "Send a message. Tell them the Empress requires a period of reflection before proceeding with formal negotiations. Tell them that I am engaging in cultural study that will inform my decision-making process. Tell them whatever diplomatic nonsense makes it sound official." She looked at Marcus. "The truth is that I am exhausted, I am grateful, and I need time to process what I have learned today." She stepped closer to Marcus, her robes flowing around her. "You offered me your lunch without knowing who I was. You showed me your world without agenda. You let me be a person rather than a position, even if only for a few hours. The Caliph have a tradition for such things." She removed one of the silver bands from her head, the metal glowing softly. "This is a crowned circle. It marks bonds of kinship beyond blood. I want you to have it." Marcus stared at the offered circle. "Your Majesty, I can't accept... You already accepted my presence at your table. You already shared your meal. By my culture's law, we are kin now, bound by the oldest form of trust. The circle marks that bond publicly. It grants you status within my empire, access to my household, and my personal protection." She pressed it into his hands. "More importantly, it grants you permission to call upon me when you need help, no matter how vast the distance between us. And it grants me permission to seek you out when I need to remember what simplicity feels like, when the weight becomes too much." "I don't know what to say, Your Majesty. Say you'll remember today. Say you'll remember that beneath all the crowns and power, beneath all the ceremony and protocol, we are all just beings trying to find meaning, to connect with others, to matter in some small way." Her galaxy eyes held his. "You mattered to me today, Marcus Chen. You probably saved my life, though not in the way you think. Not by catching me when I stumbled, but by offering me a moment of genuine kindness in a universe that had forgotten what that looked like." She turned to leave, her guards flowing into formation. At the entrance to the observation deck, she paused and looked back. "The next time I visit this station, I expect you to have a better sandwich waiting, something with more interesting ingredients. Perhaps this bacon I have heard about." "Yes, Your Majesty." "And Marcus, Your Majesty? Thank you. For seeing a person instead of power, for offering your lunch to a stranger, for reminding me why the burden matters." She smiled. "Sleep well tonight." "You earned it." The Empress of the Caliph left the observation deck, her entourage following. Within minutes, the command ship began its departure sequence, its massive form slowly pulling away from the station. Marcus stood at the viewport holding the crown circle, watching the ship disappear into slipspace. Commander Hayworth approached, his expression unreadable. "Lieutenant Chen?" "Sir, I have no idea what just happened. I have no idea how to file a report about it. I have no idea what the diplomatic implications are going to be." The commander looked at the crown circle in Marcus's hands. "But I know that you just prevented a war we didn't even know was coming." The Empress was at her breaking point. She told one of her advisors, who told one of our diplomatic staff, who told me. One more crisis, one more demand on her time and energy, and she would have snapped. When she snapped, entire star systems would have burned in the aftermath. Marcus felt his stomach drop. "I didn't know." You just offered a sandwich to someone who looked hungry. You showed basic human kindness to someone who desperately needed it. And in doing so, you reminded her why she carries the burden of empire. The commander put a hand on Marcus's shoulder. I'm recommending you for a commendation. I don't know what kind yet. There isn't really a medal for prevented galactic catastrophe through sandwich sharing, but I'm sure Diplomatic Corps will think of something. I don't need a medal, sir. No, but you're getting one anyway. The commander smiled slightly. And you're getting a promotion. And probably a very interesting addition to your service record. How does it feel to be bonded kin to the Empress of the Caliph? Terrifying, sir. Good. That means you understand the responsibility. The commander looked out the viewport at the now empty space where the command ship had been. She'll call on you again, you know, when she needs to remember, when the weight gets too heavy. That circle you're holding means you're part of her support structure now, her anchor to reality. That's not a small thing? I know, sir. Good. Now go file your report. And Marcus? Next time you're on duty and someone stumbles, maybe don't catch them. My heart can't take another day like this. Marcus smiled despite himself. Yes, sir. That night, Marcus sat in his small quarters, holding the crown circle, thinking about the day. His comm unit chimed with messages from friends and family who had somehow already heard about what happened. The news feeds were exploding with speculation about the Empress's unprecedented behavior. Diplomatic channels burned with analysis and debate. But Marcus ignored all of it. Instead, he thought about a woman who ruled 47 star systems, who commanded enough power to reshape reality, who carried the weight of billions on her shoulders, and who had cried tears of relief over a simple turkey sandwich. He thought about Maya Rodriguez, who dreamed of captaining starships. He thought about George Martinez, who found satisfaction in honest work. He thought about ordinary beings living ordinary lives, finding meaning in small moments, in simple kindness, in connection with others. The crown circle pulsed with soft light in his hands, warm against his skin, a reminder that sometimes the most important thing you can do is offer your lunch to a stranger who needs it. Marcus placed the circle carefully on his desk, lay down on his bunk, and slept better than he had in months. Above him, beyond the station walls, the stars turned in their ancient dance, indifferent and eternal. And somewhere among them, an empress, who had rediscovered her humanity, prepared to face another day of impossible decisions. The next morning, Marcus reported for duty as usual. The observation deck had returned to its normal routine, though every surface had been cleaned and polished to the point of gleaming. His fellow security officers greeted him with a mixture of awe and amusement, unsure whether to salute him or tease him about his new status as imperial kin. Life on the station settled back into its rhythms. Ships came and went. Diplomats negotiated. Merchants traded. Children played in the gardens. But something had changed. Marcus noticed it in small ways. The way people looked at him now, with a kind of respect that had nothing to do with his rank. The way conversations would pause when he entered a room, not from fear, but from curiosity. The way even senior officers seemed to choose their words carefully around him, aware that he carried a connection to power that transcended normal hierarchy. 3 weeks after the Empress's visit, Marcus received a message on his personal comm unit. The header identified it as coming from the Caliph Imperial Court, encrypted with security protocols that probably violated a dozen Terran regulations just by existing on station hardware. He opened it in his quarters alone. The message was text only, in perfect English, though he could see underlying code that suggested it had been translated from the Caliph primary language. Lieutenant Marcus Chen, the Empress wishes to inform you that the treaty negotiations were completed successfully. No blood was shed. No systems were lost. The peace will hold for at least a generation, possibly longer. She attributes this success to entering the negotiations with a clear mind and renewed perspective on what matters. She asked me to tell you that she has been sleeping better. She asked me to tell you that she instituted a new policy requiring all senior advisors to take regular meals with ordinary citizens of the Empire, to remember the beings they serve. She asked me to tell you that she remembers the taste of turkey and Swiss on rye bread, and it makes her smile. She asked me to tell you that you are always welcome in her court should you choose to visit. And she asked me to tell you, in her exact words, keep offering your lunch to strangers. The universe needs more people like you. With respect and gratitude, High Advisor Kellyan of the Caliph Imperial Court. Marcus read the message 3 times, then saved it to his personal files. He looked at the crown circle on his desk, its silver surface catching the light from his quarter's single window, and he smiled. 6 months later, the Caliph command ship returned to the station. This time there was no panic, no frantic security alerts. The diplomatic corps was prepared, protocols were established, and everyone knew the drill. The Empress came directly to the observation deck. She was alone except for 2 guards, a dramatic reduction from her previous visit. She looked better, Marcus thought. Less exhausted, the weight still showed in her eyes, but it was balanced now, bearable. She found Marcus at the same table eating lunch. He'd learned his lesson this time and brought 2 sandwiches. "Lieutenant Chen," she said formally, then smiled. "Or should I say kin? Your Majesty." Marcus stood, gestured to the empty seat. "I hoped you might visit. I made extra." She sat across from him, her guards taking positions that offered privacy while maintaining security. She looked at the sandwich he pushed toward her, and her smile brightened. "Bacon?" "As requested, Your Majesty. Bacon, lettuce, tomato. Classic BLT. And before you ask, bacon comes from pigs, which are domesticated mammals. I researched Earth animals extensively after our last meeting." She picked up the sandwich carefully. "I wanted to understand the context of what I was eating. Food, I have learned, is never just food. It is culture, history, connection. A sandwich represents decisions made centuries ago about what to cultivate, what to hunt, what to preserve. It represents the accumulated knowledge of how to combine simple ingredients into something satisfying. That's a very philosophical way to look at lunch, Your Majesty." "I am a very philosophical person, Marcus Chen. It comes with the crown." She took a bite, chewed thoughtfully. Salty, smoky. The texture contrast with the lettuce is interesting, more complex than the turkey. More expensive, too, because complexity has value. The Empress set down the sandwich. "I wanted to tell you in person that your gesture, your small act of kindness, changed more than you know. I went into those treaty negotiations with a different mindset. I listened more. I looked for the beings behind the political positions. I remembered that every decision affected people who ate simple meals and found joy in ordinary moments. The negotiations were faster, cleaner, more honest than they had been in decades. I'm glad, Your Majesty." The other empires are confused. They expected the usual grinding process of advantage-seeking and compromise. Instead, they encountered an empress who asked about their daily lives, their personal satisfactions, their simple pleasures. It threw them completely off balance. She smiled. "One ambassador told me I had become dangerously unpredictable. I took it as a compliment." Marcus laughed. "I'm sure you did, Your Majesty." They ate in comfortable silence for a while, watching ships come and go through the viewport. Eventually, the Empress spoke again, her voice quieter. "I have a favor to ask." "Anything, Your Majesty." "My daughter." The Empress looked at him directly. "She is 15 years old, and she is being groomed to take my place eventually. She is brilliant, dedicated, and absolutely miserable. She has never had a normal conversation. She has never shared a simple meal with someone who wanted nothing from her. She has never experienced what it is to be just a person, even for a moment." Marcus began to understand where this was going. "I want to send her here," the Empress continued. "Not as a dignitary, not as a future ruler, as a student, perhaps. An exchange program, something that lets her exist as a normal young woman for a little while. And I want you to watch over her, not as a guard, but as the person who showed me what genuine kindness looks like. Will you do this?" Marcus thought about the responsibility, about the diplomatic nightmare if anything went wrong, about the weight of protecting the heir to 47 star systems. Then he thought about Maya Rodriguez, who dreamed of captaining starships. "Yes, Your Majesty, I'll do it." The Empress's expression showed relief and gratitude. "Thank you. You cannot know what this means to me. To give my daughter even a fraction of what you gave me, a chance to see the universe through eyes unclouded by power and protocol." "When would she arrive?" 2 months. "I need to arrange the political cover, convince my advisors that this is not insane, and prepare my daughter for the experience." The Empress stood, her robes flowing around her. "I will send detailed instructions, security protocols, emergency procedures. But the core of what I ask is simple. Show her what you showed me. Show her sandwiches in gardens and maintenance workers who take pride in honest labor. Show her children who dream big dreams. Show her that the beings she will one day rule are not numbers or resources, but people with hopes and fears and simple joys. I understand, Your Majesty. I know you do. That is why I trust you with this." She paused at the entrance, her guards falling into formation. "Marcus Chen, you are the most important person in my empire right now, and you achieved that status by offering your lunch to a stranger. Never underestimate the power of small kindnesses." They ripple outward in ways you cannot predict, changing the course of empires and the fates of billions. She left, and Marcus sat alone with his half-eaten sandwich, contemplating the fact that his life had just become exponentially more complicated. 2 months later, a young Caliph woman arrived at the station, traveling on a commercial transport with minimal security, dressed in simple robes that didn't scream royalty. She looked terrified and excited in equal measure. Marcus met her at the dock. Her galaxy eyes were the same as her mother's, but younger, less burdened. She carried a small bag and an expression of determined hope. "Princess," Marcus said formally, "please don't." Her voice was soft but firm. "You would help me be normal. Normal people don't call each other by titles. I'm Celia, just Celia." Marcus smiled. "Okay, just Celia. I'm Marcus. Are you hungry?" "Starving. Good. I know a place that makes excellent sandwiches. Let me tell you about a thing called turkey." They walked through the station together, a security officer and a princess pretending to be ordinary, and behind them, invisible but ever-present, the weight of empires and the hopes of billions rested on the foundation of a simple act of kindness. Somewhere in the administrative offices, Commander Hayworth saw them on the security feeds and sighed deeply, already imagining the stress headaches to come. Somewhere in the gardens, George Martinez fixed a malfunctioning irrigation system and thought about the day the Empress asked about his work. Somewhere in the residential section, Maya Rodriguez looked at her acceptance letter to the Caliph Imperial Academy and cried tears of joy. And somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, aboard a command ship that held the power to reshape reality, an empress sat alone in her chambers, holding a simple wrapper from a turkey sandwich, and allowed herself to hope that her daughter would find what she had found. A moment of peace, a connection without agenda, and the reminder that beneath all the crowns and power, they were all just beings trying to find meaning in a vast and often overwhelming universe. Marcus Chen, security officer, ordinary human, kin to the Empress of the Caliph, led a nervous princess to the observation deck, pointed out the best view of the stars, and asked her what kind of sandwich she wanted to try first. And the universe, vast and indifferent, took note of the small moment and held its breath, because sometimes the fate of empires rests not on great battles or political maneuvering, but on simple kindness offered without expectation of return. The sandwich wrapper that the Empress kept in her chambers became a symbol, though only a handful of beings knew of its existence. It represented the moment when power remembered humanity, when an empire turned away from the edge of darkness because someone offered lunch to a stranger. Years later, historians would debate the exact moment when the Caliph Empire transformed from an aggressive, expansionist power into a more measured, thoughtful entity. They would point to specific treaties, particular policy changes, measurable shifts in diplomatic approach. But those who were there, those who understood what really happened, knew the truth was simpler and stranger. An exhausted empress stumbled in a docking bay, was caught by a security officer, and was offered half a turkey sandwich. From such small moments, the future is built. From simple kindness, empires are transformed. And from the willingness to share your lunch with a stranger, the universe learns that hope still exists, that connection still matters, that beneath all the complexity and power and protocol, we are all just beings trying to find our way home. Marcus Chen kept offering his lunch to strangers. The Empress kept sleeping better. Maya Rodriguez eventually captained her own ship. George Martinez kept fixing things that mattered. And Celia, Princess of the Caliph Empire, learned what it meant to be human, even though she was something entirely different, because humanity is not a species but a choice, a decision to see others, to connect, to offer kindness without agenda. The observation deck on Terran Station 7 remained a popular spot for watching ships come and go, for eating lunch in quiet contemplation, for sharing simple meals with friends and strangers alike, and if sometimes, late at night when the station was quiet, a massive command ship would appear briefly in the viewport, hovering like a dark moon before disappearing into slipspace. No one mentioned it. Some things were too important for reports, too meaningful for protocols, too precious to reduce to official documentation. Some things were just moments of connection between beings who found each other across the vast darkness, who shared a meal, who remembered that kindness matters more than power. Some things were simply human, in the best sense of that complicated, beautiful, painful, hopeful word. And that, in the end, was enough.